All right, everybody, welcome to a very special crossover episode. The two remaining Western Conference teams are set to duel, and boy, is this going to be an exciting one. All of the storylines. I don't think the NHL could ask for something any better than what they're getting between the Colorado Avalanche and Edmonton Oilers. You got myself, Chris Maselli. You got Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, and Brett Holden, host of Locked On Oilers. And we are going to break this thing down and even give our predictions. So let's get to this.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Locked On Avalanche and Locked On Oilers. We are doing a special crossover episode like we have been doing at every round along the way, and this one is pretty much as good as it can get. You have the Colorado Avalanche, the Edmonton Oilers, McDavid, MacKinnon. You have our old pal Tyson Barrie. You have Cale Makar. I mean, the storylines go on and on. We are set for an exciting series. So we're going to just break this thing down. If you're unfamiliar with the other team, I mean, they did play 3 times this year, but the playoffs bring something new, obviously. And I think with the Oilers especially, there's some players that have just really stepped it up. So we'll get to stuff like that. But welcome aboard. I am Chris Maselli, along with my buddy Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. We host Locked On Avalanche. And there is Mr. Brett Holden, host of Locked On Oilers. How are we feeling, fellas? Are we ready to go? Brett, what are you thinking? How's Oiler Nation feeling about this thing?
Oh, we are ready to go. Edmonton hasn't been this buzzing since literally 2006, and I was 10 years old, I think. So it's nice to actually be a part of one of those people who are on like the television stands on White Avenue. It's the city's buzzing a little bit here, and we can't wait for this series to get started.
Isn't it just nice that both of these teams had storylines going in, and to this point, they've both surpassed those. Obviously, with the Avalanche, it was second round. Oilers was first round.
Yeah.
So and then Edmonton pushed beyond that. Avalanche pushed beyond their second round. I don't want to say whatever team doesn't make it is happy because clearly you got this far, you want to continue. But I guess maybe from the Oilers side of things, if they don't, if they get eliminated here. What is the mindset? And I'm not trying to think too far ahead, but what is the mindset maybe going into next year, or just when you look back at the year, will it have been a success?
Well, I mean, even if you take a look at the series before, we were going into the Calgary Flames series, and like Pierre LeBrun went to X amount of executives and coaches around the league and said, who's going to win this series between the Oilers and the Flames? Well, everybody had the Flames, and look, 5 games, and the Oilers are waiting between St. Louis and Colorado. Now we know who. It was 7 games going into Los Angeles, and everyone's going, it's the old demons again. And the Oilers were able to dump out of those old demons too. In February 10th, the Edmonton Oilers were sitting out of the playoffs. They were sitting in 10th in the Western Conference, and then Jay Woodcroft came in. They became a totally different team. And honestly, the team that the Colorado Avalanche played throughout the regular season, as you did mention, it is a totally different monster from regular season to playoffs, but they weren't in the playoffs. They're a totally different team. And I was saying to a lot of people, if we even make the playoffs, it should be considered a win at some point. Now we're here in the Western Conference Final.
Well, quickly, Kyle, Adam Dunker from Locked On Lightning, him and I host the Thursday edition of Locked On NHL, and we always do the power rankings. And I shouldn't say we present the power rank. People always want to yell at us for coming up with like these power rankings. No, it's all of the hosts across Locked On NHL vote on it. And early in the year, Oilers were up there. They had a really good start to the year, and they just were in free fall a little bit, kind of like beginning to middle of the season. But like you're saying, like this is why you play the entirety of a season. The St. Louis Blues will tell you they went from nothing to winning the Stanley Cup. So exactly. They completely turned it around. But go ahead, Kyle. We got one.
Yeah, and you mentioned like Edmonton's a buzz, and I'm just asking from an outside perspective, looking at everything you got going on in Edmonton. How does it feel going into the Western Conference Final, knowing that you are Canada's team, knowing Canada is so starved for a Stanley Cup
Yeah.
that usually you're playing like the third favorite. It's usually like Toronto, Montreal, maybe Edmonton, maybe Vancouver if they're having a great year. But
Yeah.
what does it feel like to have Canada behind you?
It's actually kind of nice. It's nice that, like you said, one of my best friends is a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. So every time we get going, it's like, oh, how are the Leafs? Oh, how are the Oilers? But now he's actually going, oh, well, I want a Canadian team to win, so I guess it's with the Oilers. It is with hesitancy. It is very much
Yeah.
with hesitancy because
Yeah.
I don't get what it is. I must be missing the quota or something, but it feels like next to those teams that you mentioned with the Leafs and the Habs, after those two, the Oilers are like the most hated after that, and they just love to hate the Oilers. So it seems like it's almost a hate to love the Oilers at this point because it really, I guess we did have 10 years of, oh man, they suck, and now, oh, they get Connor McDavid. That's not fair. So it's the weird double-edged sword that people are okay with cheering for us because we do want the cup again, but there's not people hate us at the same time,
Yeah.
So
Well, obviously you mentioned Connor McDavid, so let's get into that because you're going to hear a lot of that matchup with McDavid and MacKinnon. I kind of jokingly put up on Twitter that this will be the next Fast and Furious movie. Is just this series edited down to a 2-hour film because like this is going to be just Speed Demon City, led by those two guys, and you like seeing this stuff. You like seeing Connor McDavid lifting his team up, and Nathan MacKinnon did it as well at times. I think he has a bigger supporting cast that will, if he's not performing well, they'll lift the team up. But your superstars rose to the occasion for the most part, pretty much for most of these playoffs.
Yeah,
And
well,
I got to be expecting more of that, wouldn't you?
well, exactly. Well, that's the thing is in order to win in the playoffs, your best players need to be your best players. And for the Edmonton Oilers, that's how they propelled themselves over the Calgary Flames, over the Los Angeles Kings. In Game 7, it was 1-0 in the third period until Connor McDavid decided to be Connor McDavid again. You need those top players, but at the same time, Zach Hyman against the Calgary Flames scored in every single game. The only Oiler to ever do that. And we're talking about some pretty illustrious Oilers here.
Right.
And Zach Hyman's the one that's putting his name on top. Evander Kane is 3 goals away from scoring the most amount of playoff goals from Sidney Crosby in 2008, 2009. Like they have that supporting cast, like you said, that now Nathan MacKinnon has in the Nazem Kadris, who has been absolutely fantastic for the Colorado Avalanche. I cannot exemplify that enough.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
I've always been a Nazem Kadri guy. I've always been that, oh, he's a pest, and you hate to play against him, but you love to have him on your team, and you're succeeding with them. Or with him, I should say.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, this is one of those things, like as a hockey fan, it doesn't matter what jersey you wear. Connor McDavid's one of those players that everyone, like, you love to hate him because he's so good. And when your team is matched up against him, knowing that we have like Nathan MacKinnon, like you look forward to that matchup, and what he's been able to do in the playoffs, like excites you. And like we mentioned with Canada behind you and everything going into the conference finals, and with Colorado and getting past the second round, like this is one of those like sit down, pop your popcorn, McDavid, MacKinnon. This is what you live for. And do you expect like it to billow, or is this one of those things where this is alpha on alpha and they kind of cancel out?
That's a good question. I think the important, maybe not important thing is, but before we were even getting going here, I think the thing that we kind of said was Connor McDavid's not from this world. Connor McDavid is a whole other entity. When Nathan MacKinnon, fantastic hockey player, and I will never not say that Nathan MacKinnon is not a top 3 guy. He is, if not right next to Connor McDavid, the guy in the NHL. But he is the best hockey player, I would say, where Connor McDavid can just the athleticism, I should say, on him, the speed, the skill, just absolutely anything the kid can do. He does it at 115%. It is insane. So even if you were the best hockey player in the world, you can go and watch him and be, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
It's insane. It is insane.
I've grown up as a fan of sports. When you're young, like, okay, I grew up like, and Michael Jordan was, the greatest thing on a basketball court. And I hated him, growing up a Knicks fan, and, the Knicks could never get past him.
Right.
But like, as you get older, you appreciate greatness. And you should be like thanking that you are alive at a time where someone like this exists and you can watch him play. You know what I mean? So I don't have, and I feel like Connor McDavid is liked. Like he doesn't have this added. I feel like he's liked across the league, but being a fan of the sport, I don't watch this anymore, especially with someone like him saying like, "Oh, he's so good, I hate him." I think of it as like, he's so good, I appreciate him more. And even though he's not on my team, I'm not going to have that hate mindset because he's good. Appreciate, because I don't want it to be, there's going to be people 50 years from now who look back and say like, oh my God, he was the best ever. I wasn't around for it. We're around for it. So, and same thing to an extent goes to MacKinnon, and probably as the years go on, Cale Makar. Like, we are surrounded right now by excellence, and I just watch it in awe. Except for Sidney Crosby, we can all hate him.
Well, that's what I was going to say with Sidney Crosby, a little bit of the Sidney Crosby. But what I was going to say is, you mentioned Cale Makar. I will sit down right here and I will sign my name to next to absolutely anything that needs signing, and to say that Cale Makar will be the next Bobby Orr. And I don't think that is really even too far of a, oh, what does this guy say? This kid is almost, genuinely almost as good as Connor McDavid is, and he's a defenseman.
Right.
His point production over his first 82 games almost matched Connor McDavid, and he's a defenseman. You watch the kid skate from his own end to the other end, and you're just in awe. And again, you can be a fan of any team, and you can just sit there and go, wow. It's just fantastic kid, man. Just a fantastic talent there. How is it, like, because you guys have so many, your defense is absolutely stacked. We can go through all of the players, but I mean, Devin Taves is another guy who deserves more love, and a guy that I think if you ask a lot of people, a lot of the executives around the team, we'd be like, oh yeah, we kind of want Devon Taves on our team. Bowen Byram is almost basically Cale Makar light, depending on who you ask. Right. But you just have younger guys coming up through the pipeline who can be just as good, and that is scary. And then that's offensively and defensively.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Kyle. You were gonna.
And that's the thing that, like, we were talking about the McDavid-MacKinnon matchup. That's the thing Avalanche fans are looking forward to when you have Cale Makar and you have your Bowen Byram, and you have your kind of the coming on late hero Josh Manson. Like, what the defense can do. Like, it's one thing knowing if you're like maybe Ottawa or Columbus, knowing that you have Connor McDavid coming in your building and what to expect. With the Avalanche and what they have on the D-core, you're kind of excited because, like what Chris was saying, like, you like watching these players, you don't hate them. For Avalanche fans, you're like, what can we do to stop them? Because you're capable with every defensive pairing that we put on the ice.
Yeah, it's and you touched on Bowen Byram, and he is very stealthily having himself a postseason. You know, MacKinnon is and you know, Makar and you know, those guys will get the headlines and Kadri will get the headlines. What Bowen Byram has done, he's just, his confidence is through the roof right now. And for Avalanche fans, not even knowing if he was going to ever take the ice again. I don't want to say like every time he gets hit, like I don't cringe anymore. I still do, just because, you know, he has history with concussions. So that's always there. But I mean, he's been healthy, knock on wood.
Yeah.
And he's just methodically, he had to step up because Sam Girard got the injury against St. Louis where he's out for the remainder of the playoffs. So and that's the beauty of the Avalanche is they can just have these guys just bump him up. Okay. Then we'll put him in. We'll bring back Jack Johnson. You know, we'll have the Johnson and Johnson brothers back together, and then you know, and it's just away we go, and it's just next man up, and let's just keep this thing going. Okay.
Well,
and
you go ahead.
Look, to piggyback off that point, 3 of the 4 leaders in plus minus in the playoffs right now are defensemen for the Avalanche, and one of those is Bowen Byram. You have Bowen Byram, Cale Makar, and Eric Johnson. Gabe Landeskog being the 4th, all tied for a +7 in the playoffs, and that should tell you the quality of defensemen. It's not just a warm body out there playing a role. These are contributors and facilitating and getting scoring going from the quarterback position on the blue line.
Yeah.
Well, you can't lose a game if you're going out there and scoring more than you're out there for. And obviously, when you take a look at the defensemen who are supposed to be the ones who are out on the ice when the goal, or at least the ones who gets kind of the flack going, where was Ethan Bear there? Where was he? You know, it's always the defenseman, you know, and the fact that half of the defensive core can be not only kind of all right, maybe in the top 10, but leading the playoffs in plus minus is pretty impressive. The other thing too with that is we want to go back to the regular season and take a look at how the Flames. I'm still in the transition between the Flames and it was funny before the Flames series. I kept going to the Kings too. So maybe I might drop that a couple times. But the thing about the Avalanche and the Oilers throughout the season is that Connor McDavid only had 4 assists in the 3 games. Now we say 4 assists in 3 games and we're like, oh, that's pretty impressive.
Right.
But in one game he had 3 assists, and then Leon Draisaitl as well, the other pretty decent Oiler, had 2 assists in those 3 games. So they're obviously doing something.
Well, let's get Rock Auto in here, and then I do want to ask you about that. I want to ask you about those depth players. But Rock Auto, with the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it is now possible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts that you need and why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand that their warehouse happens to carry. You have a computer with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. It's a family-run business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. The prices are reliably low for every customer, so go explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, right locked on in the How Did You Hear About Us section so they know that we sent you to them. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. And quickly, while we are recording this, second intermission, 3-0 Rangers.
Oh,
so Carolina has a lot of work to do in 20 minutes, but anyway, we move on. So we have our final 4 sets. I think the thing with the Oilers for the past few seasons has been there's so much money going to McDavid and Draisaitl, and they just didn't have the funds to bring in bottom 6 guys and third defensive pairing guys. How have they navigated that this year? And is it just a matter of we need the guys that we have to step up and they finally are in the playoffs?
Absolutely. I think it's more of the latter. Well, it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. I think if you asked a lot of people around the league and you take a look at Leon Draisaitl's contract, they'd be like, that's really how much he's getting paid. I think, not off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not sure why I looked at a watch that's not on my wrist, like it's going to have the salary answer. But I think it's around $8.29 million or something like that.
Right now for you, sir.
But
8.5.
8.5. There we go. And I mean, even that is when you take a look at what Draisaitl produces almost at a McDavid clip, it's like, not bad. But again, that's what, 20 million tied up in two guys there. Right. So going into previous playoffs, I think it was last playoffs, the left winger next to Connor McDavid was Dominic Cahoon.
Come again?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And like you come in, that's your first line winger. Now going into the playoffs, you have Evander Kane, who we've already talked about, and you got him on just over $1 million contract. Not bad. $2 million, not too bad. You got Zach Hyman, who a lot of people said was an overpay, who has been scoring at hello, Fernando Pisani, is that you? He has been looking fantastic. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who's been with the team for a while, but now actually has the support that he doesn't have to just be the guy who's offensively inclined and defensively inclined. You got guys like Kyler Yamamoto, who's 5'6" and an absolute spark plug.
I love that guy, man.
Yeah, I do too.
Fantastic. He's a little fireball, and you got guys like that. Even Jesse Puljujarvi gets a lot of hate. I love the man so much, but he can go out there, and he has the scoring touch that he's obviously had. It's been a little stunted recently, and if I say a little, and I can already hear the Oilers fans burning me at the stake, but it's the Oilers do have all of those threats. Plus, we haven't even gotten to the Tyson Berries, the Cody Cece, surprisingly, Evan Bouchards, Darnell Nurse. Like, there are guys outside of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl where if they do have that, they're not really showing up, they can also stand up for the Oilers and produce something, which is scary and nice to see.
Oh, okay. Chris talked about paying for your depth and how you're set up for depth. I'm going to look, we're all friends here. I'm going to just point out where you're not paying and what could be the difference in these playoffs. The goalie position.
Yeah.
It's like you knew it was coming. Like,
yeah.
You have Mike Smith, Koskinen, and Skinner. With how the Avalanche are constructed when you have depth, it's not just depth, but it's anybody that could score. Like Darren Helm was the game winner to send us in the Western Conference Final.
Yeah.
How do you think the goalie position is going to hold up? Like, it's great that we can match up depth on depth, but when the Avalanche are bringing out Darcy Kemper, who's had a resurgent season and is looking incredible and only boosting his value in a contract year, and you have Pavel Francouz waiting in the wings, is this where the series comes down to, is who can hold up in between the pipes?
Well, and 100%. But you also take a look at who the Oilers have faced in the last two series. Jonathan Quick, I will sit, as much as I was an investor in the Cale Makar thing, I would sit here and say Jonathan Quick has been one of, if not the best goaltender of the last generation. And he still almost looks like Dominic Hasek at times. And he almost won the Kings that series. Then you go into Calgary and you get a Vezina Trophy candidate in Jacob Markstrom, and the Oilers made him look pedestrian. Now going into Colorado, I'm sorry, like we said, we're all friends here. Yeah. In the last series, Darcy Kemper had a .891 save percentage.
It was not good.
It wasn't that good. In the last series, Mike Smith had a .907, which, I mean, you take a look, it's only about 9-ish points or however that may be, but still, that is a better save percentage. But how long can that stand? That is the thing. Like, Mike Smith is 40. He's old. And it just seems like it's just a matter of time that it's going to burst. The Oilers have only faced Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk, who were not the greatest. The best scoring players in Los Angeles were Philip Deneau and Mario. I kept going Mario Kempe too last time.
Adrian.
Kempe.
Adrian.
Yeah, Adrian. There we go. Adrian Kempe as well. Like now the Oilers are going up against a team whose top scorers are Nathan MacKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Nazem Kadri, Cale Makar. Kind of a different firepower, and that is terrifying from the Oilers' perspective. But does Darcy Kemper's, because that's kind of my question, is the last couple of games, Darcy Kemper in the last 4 games, he had a save percentage in the 800s in 2 of them. That's, I mean, Darcy Kemper is a fantastic goaltender, like you said. He had the resurgence, but if the Oilers sniff even a little bit of blood, they're like sharks, and they're gonna attack.
I feel like those numbers might be a little deceptive when the Avalanche are escaping games, only allowing like just over 20 shots,
totally,
and maybe letting up 1 or 2. It might make Darcy Kemper look bad, but when this defense is clicking, it doesn't matter who's rolling through there. They're going to make you make uncomfortable shots. And Darcy Kemper, once he gets hot, forget about it. He's up there with the best of the league. I think he's suffering from where he's played and why he's played there. But it's one of those, if we could get off hot in game 1, it's going to be a long series.
It's going to be a long series for us.
What Kyle's saying is there's some truth to it, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it for Darcy Kemper. He was bad. Yeah. He was bad in St. Louis, and it wasn't just. In the beginning, the first couple games, the goals that were going in on him were deflections off his own team. Mm-hmm. They were off of defenders of the Avalanche, so they're not completely on him. But as that series went on, you could see his confidence not there as much. And he was not stopping shots that were no unimpeded. Like him and who's going to shoot the puck at him, and he couldn't stop him. Right. Yeah. So I don't have concern over it though, because I kind of feel like when a series is over and you move into a different one, I kind of feel like everybody just hits the reset button, and I don't feel like bad play will carry over from series to series. But even having said that, like he does have to prove that he had an excellent season. Mm-hmm. He had a very, very good season, and he's had a good postseason, save for the last 2, maybe 3 games of we'll say half of the Blues series.
Sure.
So which Darcy Kemper are you going to get? I mean, that is a question right now. That is a question. So, and I think both of these teams will throw everything at goalies. Mm-hmm. So both of them are going to have to be like there's going to be games where one of them needs to stand on their head, because the Avs, for the most part, were in control of the Blues series. They really controlled the pace of the game for almost all of it. There were times where the Blues took control of the game, and obviously they won a couple of them. So, they must have had some momentum going. But overall, the Avs were really in command of it. They just couldn't get anything in net for the most part. Well, but I think overall, like both of these goalies have something to prove, and they will be challenged. This is going to be an offensive series. So I think the over-under for game 1 for goals is 6.5. Oh. I think that is low.
Yeah.
Low.
Ask me. So,
well, and I was curious because especially in game 3 for the Oilers, all 4 of their goals in the second period happened on the transition. For the Colorado Avalanche, who have defensemen who can step up underneath the face-off dots and create a cycle, and the Edmonton Oilers are a team who, I'm not going to say likes to play in their own end, but likes to play on that transition game. If I'm going to be honest, watching the Edmonton Oilers is kind of like watching a soccer team. They're kind of okay, we'll let the other team have possession, and then oh now we got it, and just now the other way, and now they got a lot of possession, and then that's when the Oilers really strike. Are you kind of concerned when it comes to the transition game, when you take a look at all the guys who might be barreling down on a Darcy Kemper and a single defenseman, because a defenseman was caught in the defensive or in the offensive zone and now is chasing Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Evander Kane, take your pick?
Yeah.
I when it comes to transition offense for the Oilers, the Avs don't typically give up those juicy, like the Connor McDavid highlight reels are off a bad defensive beat, and Connor McDavid's on a breakaway. You seldom see that for the Avalanche. If you get in the offensive zone, congratulations, you've earned it. You're not getting behind this defense on a beat. We talk about Cale Makar all the time, almost as he plays like positionless hockey, and the whole team has kind of adopted that mentality. You see Mikko Rantanen dropping back for some defensive coverage a lot. If it's one of those you mentioned, like the Oilers barreling down, if it's there, it's earned, and it becomes a one-on-one matchup. But I don't think you'll see it as much as you're accustomed to throughout the rest of the regular season.
I think for most of the lines it's true, but it's a different animal with Connor McDavid, man. It is like he can make things appear where there should be nothing. So
Connor McDavid would be ideally facing the Cale Makar Taze D pair.
Should be. Yeah.
That's your smartest, like the highest hockey IQ you have is on that D pair. And it's top line on top line, so you're expecting the best of the best. If they get beat, expect Bednar to throw an adjustment in there and shift it up and change it up. But for some reason, I just don't know if it's going to be that dump and chase and bad breaks and defensive beats, because these teams are matched up very similarly.
Very similarly. And that's what the Oilers love to do, is they just gain the red line and just dump it in. And then you got that little 5'6" spark plug coming in, and Kyler Yamamoto coming up from underneath you, and you go, it's like, where did you come from? And then the puck's turned over, and you got to take your pick on who you're going to cover, right? And that's where I'm sitting here, and I'm like, okay, this might kind of be where we can hopefully catch Colorado. But now I'm sitting here and going, oh, no, maybe not. But like Kyle said too, it's like, it's Connor McDavid. It just comes out of nowhere all of a sudden. Like, my dad watched Wayne Gretzky. My dad watched any of those best players ever, and he sits there and watches Connor McDavid and literally has a tear in his eye, because you could never understand that somebody could be this good. But
he's lived up to it. So, and they're not like so much connected as I thought they would be, but like, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, number 1 in the draft, followed up by Gabe Landeskog. Like, he was number 2 in that draft. So, that's like another storyline that kind of gets buried a little bit. Not that they have like a rivalry or anything like that, but 2 guys that have been playing for that long. Like, they have been playing for this is the first time they've both in this situation. So I kind of just feel like, even though we're going up against the Oilers, I kind of like whoever wins this year, like if Avalanche don't come out of this, I think I'm still pulling for the Oilers, especially if it's the Lightning again. Nobody wants a three-peat from them. And it seems like it's going to be the Rangers. I'm checking here.
Chris Kreider just scored 4-0
now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Kochetov's in net. It's all over.
So that's pretty much done. I mean, there's 16 minutes left, so anything is possible. But wow. And I think I saw that Ranta left the game. He was injured.
Yeah. Along with Seth Jarvis early.
And Jarvis got railed.
Oh, really?
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, that was awful. That was nasty.
But
I don't want to say that's the playoffs, but you lose guys. Seth Jarvis had a massive playoffs for the Carolina Hurricanes.
Huge. Yeah.
You lose a guy like that, and then all of a sudden you're sitting down your bench, looking down the bench going, okay, so who's going to step up now? The Oilers and the Avalanche have guys who can do that.
I mean, segue right into that, because that's where I was going to ask, and then we'll kind of get into predictions. Like, there's always guys that step up, and Kyle and I have been doing this thing before each series, who are kind of like guys that need to step up. For the Avalanche, it's not that he's playing poorly, but I'm really interested to see the lines that come out for game 1, because Jared Bednar has been mixing and matching. Like, the past couple games in St. Louis, Mikko Rantanen has gone down to the second line. which is like scary enough when you have him and Kadri on the same line. But Arturi Lehkonen has gone up to the top line. So is that, if that remains the same, if that remains a constant, he's got to perform. Like that is a big ask of him. He's up for the task. But if he is starting on the top line, and the top line has lately been him with Landeskog and MacKinnon, I mean, all eyes are going to be on those lines. Let's face it. So he needs to arrive. If he is starting on that top line with those two guys, he's got to put the work in. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. Kyle, who else on the Avalanche is someone that you're kind of looking at?
It's got to be a step up game for Berkey, a step up series for Andre Burakovsky. He's kind of there, and
he plays. I mean,
he missed a whole game and was sub back in for Nugent. I thought it was
for 2 games.
Yeah, okay.
I think it was 2. Yeah, and Nugent came in. Yeah.
And I would like him to step up. Like, if you're there, do something. That's just honestly my feeling for the whole team. If you're on the ice, you have to be doing something. So that just the bare minimum. Like, get something going, assist. Like, I know you're not going to score a goal because you're going to miss the net, but just get something going.
That's his nickname, Brett, is Andre missed the net. Oh, man.
Every time he takes a shot, it's Burakovsky with a shot. Oh, wide of the net. Every time.
So. Those are scary names that you mentioned. I think the fact that the thing with Lehkonen I'm curious about is he kind of there as a shutdown role? Is he there to produce some offense? What's the play there?
Yes. Everything. He is. He's there for offense. Right. Next to Val Nichushkin, he's probably their best forechecker. So when they split those two guys up, you got Nichushkin on the second line and you have Lehkonen on the top line. That's a forechecking nightmare for other teams. So no, they ask him to do it all. They really do.
Yeah. If the last time you remember Lehkonen is in a Habs jersey, keep that mentality, please.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking. I think from the Oilers' perspective, there are a couple names that come to mind. You went with 2, I'll go with 2 here. So my first one is going to be Ryan McLeod. Ryan McLeod is a guy who plays in each and every situation for the Oilers. He plays in the penalty kill. He plays on the power play. He plays 5-on-5. He can go into those dirty corners in your own end, and he can go in the dirty corners in the other team's end, and he will go out there and come out with this good old hockey smile he has on his face, missing his front tooth. I almost went just like him and went missing the front tooth. And he's fantastic. He's got speed. Sometimes I watch him and I go, oh, Connor's go. Oh, never mind. That's Ryan McLeod. Never mind. He is a fantastic skater. He just needs to get a point, please.
He's got none.
He's gotten. He may have an assist, or I think he has a goal in the LA series, but that's it.
Really?
And the thing with the Oilers is that Connor McDavid kind of does all of it, and you don't really need that. And Ryan McLeod realizes that, you know what, I don't necessarily need to be on the score sheet to be successful, to be efficient, to do my job, essentially. And he's right. But it would be nice to see him just get those goals. He's around the net all the time. It's just please, a matter of finding the back of the net. And another guy who's just like that, almost just like that, is Jesse Puljujärvi. On the flip side of Ryan McLeod, who, like I said, plays on the penalty kill, plays on the power play. Yes, Puljujärvi doesn't. He's one of, weirdly enough, if you take a look at his 5-on-5 numbers, the most efficient, not only Oilers forward, but Oiler in general in his own end. But he doesn't play penalty kill. He rarely ever plays power play unless it's Evander Kane in the penalty box, which does happen. Or if you just throw out extra guys at the end of the power play. He doesn't really go out there, but he's very effective on 5-on-5. If the Oilers can get scoring from the 4th overall draft pick from 2016, that's massive for them. The guy in Edmonton, there were Bison King billboards around the city because he went on a walk in one of the national parks here in Edmonton, and he ran into a bison. And so he took a photo of him and his dog and his coffee going like this, and everywhere he was Bison King, and he's going and scoring goals. There's a guy in a bison helmet
Wow.
sitting next to the bench. He was massive, and then he got hurt, and he hasn't been able to capture that Bison King magic since. So I really think if he can get going, the whole team can get going.
Wow. All right. Well, you always look for those guys because
Yeah.
as important as the superstars are, and there's a lot of them in this series, look what just happened with the Avalanche. Darren Helm is the guy that sent him to the conference finals. So, all right, let's get to it. I read a lot of websites and stuff like that, and I'm kind of surprised. I'm seeing a lot of Avalanche in like 5 and 6, and I really wasn't expecting that. I was expecting a lot of people to pick this thing to go the distance in either manner because of how well the Oilers have played, and especially with the Avalanche. They're obviously playing well themselves. I think there's a lot of people who are just assuming the Avalanche are going to steamroll through this thing. I don't see it happening. I think this is set up for a 7-game series, and obviously I got to go Avalanche because it is Game 7 would be in Denver. That is what it is. So I struggle to see this thing going less than that. I mean, maybe they can escape in 6, but I got to go the distance on this one. Avalanche in 7. What do you say, Kyle?
As much as I like to be a contrarian, and I don't see any way this doesn't go 7. This is an Avs in 7 kind of series.
I'm with you. I'm with you. All right, Brett.
I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. I was going into the Calgary Flames series and I was packing it up. I was looking at, what can I do in the off season? I got in with Jess. I had my crossover with Jess from Locked On Flames. I said, you know what? This is going to be Flames in 7. It really is going to be. And I got hate messages. I got people going, I can't believe you're an Oiler. Yeah. I can't support an Oilers guy who's not going. I was just trying to be realistic.
Yep.
But obviously I was wrong. Heading into this series, I genuinely have more confidence going into it. And I guess I was more concerned about the 9-5 game that happened during the season. I was like, they're just going to run amok on us. But that's not what happened. It's not what happened. And I think that really opened my eyes to the team that the Oilers can be. They can adapt in a 9-6 hockey game. They can play a 2-1 hockey game that goes into a shootout against the Colorado Avalanche in Edmonton. They can the best games that the Oilers have played this year have been against the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And if you ask many of those players, they will 100% agree. I really think the Oilers can. Hey, we talked about 7 games, and I think us 3 here aren't the only ones who are going, this is going 7. I think people in the league are going, this is going 7. I think a lot of people in the league also want it to go to 7. So I'm going to say it does go 7 games, but the Oilers do pull it off. I got to.
You get no flack from me, man. All you got to do, if you're the Oilers, you just got to get to that point. You got to get to, I mean, if you can end it earlier, obviously you want to do that, but you get it to the 7th game, and then anything. Look what the Rangers are doing right now.
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly.
There you go. That's the position the Oilers could be in. So.
Well, and you mentioned the Rangers. They just gave up a goal to kind of let Colorado. There we go.
Yeah,
Carolina back into it.
Are you predicting a Stanley Cup right there, man?
Hey, whoa. Maybe.
Right.
But now they just scored again and just kind
of it's 5-1.
Immediately
Unbelievable.
takes the air out of the building. So like you said, Game 7's in Denver. If the Oilers can do something, nobody expected a 5-1 in Carolina.
No.
A team who's won every game since the start of the playoffs at home. So if one game can decide it all, and if the Oilers or the Avalanche can get it to a 7th game, it's up in the air.
Anything can happen. Exactly. So I think we're in for a treat here, being NHL, and the NHL itself is loving this. For from guys like us that will watch it no matter what. Those I don't want to say fair weather fans, but that's a bad term. But the fans that just tune in because you got two of the top players in the league going against each other. I'm going to watch that.
Totally.
And I think if you like offense, if you like goals, if you like speed, this series is going to have everything. So good luck to you, Brett, and your team. I'm sure we will be talking many times throughout this, and it's going to be exciting. Throw out where people can follow you and the show, and anywhere else they can follow you.
Sounds good. You can follow me personally at The Real Holden 40. That's HOLDEN, like Nick Holden, who used to play for the Colorado Avalanche. But you guys don't care about me. You guys want to hear the show. You can find us on Twitter at Locked On Oilers. Basically how you expect to spell it, and on YouTube as well. We're also on Locked On Oilers, so make sure you tune into there. Thank you so much for having me today, and I'm so excited for this series.
Definitely. And you can follow Locked On Avalanche, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche Instagram, and of course we have a YouTube channel as well. Just search for Locked On Avalanche, and you can follow Kyle. What's your tag over there, Kyle?
At Shaggy Von Doom.
Gotta love it. All right, everybody. Enjoy the series. It's going to be a good one. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.